After today, I plan to stand with the victims' families in the Idaho 4 case and never utter the name Brian Kohberger again. In fact, for the purposes of this episode, I'm going to only use his initials, BK, throughout the rest of the video. Because this scumbag deserves to be forgotten as he was always destined to be. But I, like the rest of you, could not look away during his sentencing hearing today. If you've not been following this case, he finally agreed after like 2 years of toying with the system and the victims' families to take a plea deal so that he could avoid the death penalty in this case that involved the 4 deaths of students in the town of Moscow, Idaho. So thanks to that plea deal, he will now be serving a sentence of life in prison without parole, and society will be spared beyond a shadow of a doubt from his presence. But as BK slinks off into his jail cell, the people who should be remembered are not only the victims, but their families, who put on a masterclass in how to handle a psychopath today. So today, I want to recap their statements and what they chose to do with their time during the sentencing hearing. Hey guys, I'm Hannah Cox. Welcome back to my channel where I bring you my politically homeless takes on politics and culture. Before we get started, please take a second to like this video, weigh in the comments, let me know what you thought of the hearing today, and don't forget to head over and subscribe to my channel so you never miss any of my video uploads. Also, make sure you hit that bell notification because if you haven't noticed, I don't keep a very tight ship around here and upload videos pretty sporadically. So if you hit that bell, you'll always get notified whenever I choose to upload. Now let's dig in. For those of you who don't know, before I moved into my current career of working in media and political commentary, I actually was a lobbyist and I spent a good bit of time working on criminal justice reform throughout the years of about 2014 to 2020. And one of the things I was heavily involved with during that time period was overturning the death penalty. I went from being somebody who was stringently in support of it to realizing that I had a very emotional reason for why I had supported it, knew absolutely nothing about how it operated, and once I became more informed, I quickly changed my tune, and then I helped overturn the death penalty in 3 states over the course of 3 years. Now, I don't want to dig into all of the arguments for or against the death penalty in this video. I've done that at length. I will insert a card right here so you can go and watch my video on that topic if you're interested. But needless to say, I think it is a good thing that Brian Kohberger ultimately took this plea deal and is heading to a sentence of life in prison without parole versus going through a death penalty trial. And I don't think that because I think he deserves to live. I think he's a scumbag. I think if he had even an ounce of actual courage, he would have taken care of himself long ago, okay? In my utopia, the family wouldn't have delivered victim impact statements today. They would have actually gotten to like beat the shit out of him. But because we live in a civilized society and because the law has to be in place to actually govern in a way that is free from passion, the death penalty was not going to do anybody any favors here. Ultimately, he probably would not have been executed, first and foremost because states lack the actual ability to carry out those sentences much of the time, and more importantly, because the appellate process takes a very, very long time. And that's a good thing because the death penalty has a lot of innocence problems. And I do mean a lot of innocence issues. Like 1 person has been exonerated for every 8 executions we've carried out in this country. And that shouldn't surprise you if you know absolutely anything about government, absolutely anything about police, okay? Completely incompetent. So what the death penalty ends up being is ultimately what they would have said in Rome, panem et circenses. A lot of bread and circuses. It makes you feel good. There's a lot of theater to it. It makes you feel like you're getting vengeance, but really it's just kind of an emotional theatrical production that doesn't actually lead to anything. Most victims' families, who I have had the privilege of working around in many of my reform efforts, will tell you firsthand that it does not provide closure for them. In fact, if anything, it often prevents them from being able to move forward with their lives because they're getting drugged back into court over and over for decades through the appellate process, having to consistently relive the worst thing that ever happened to them, having to re-encounter the individual that carried these things out. It keeps these wounds open and alive for a much longer time period. I would also say that it's something that ultimately leads to less justice in society, and that's because the death penalty is really, really expensive. And no, I already know what you're going to say if you support the death penalty. It's not because of the appellate process. It's not because it takes too long to carry out. It's not because it's expensive to actually do it. Okay. Like people are often like, how much does a bullet cost? Okay. Well, we don't use bullets to carry out the death penalty. And even if we did, it would still be really expensive because the reason for most of the costs are the trial, which costs at least $1 million more per case than a life in prison without parole case. Think about it. If the death penalty is $1 million more per case, at least, than a life in prison without parole case where the person lives out the full extent of their life incarcerated, then it's not the length of the appellate process making it expensive, and it's not the death process making it expensive. It's the whole thing happening over here. It's the charade, the bread and the circuses of the trial. So in taking this plea deal, BK actually saved taxpayers a lot of money, even though a lot of that money has already been spent, given the fact he took 2+ years to do it. But he also saved the victims' families the horror of having to go through the trial, of hearing all of the gruesome details, and of living with this case for decades to come. Now, if you followed the case closely, and I have, this is one of those cases that just got under my skin. I am not like most of you. I don't like true crime. I don't follow it. I don't think it's interesting. Having spent so much time working in the actual field of criminal justice, I went through a very long time period where I could not even entertain or listen to any bit of true crime information because I was just completely inundated with it. And so I had so much exhaustion from it. I had compassion fatigue almost because you're just confronted with awful case after awful case after awful case on a daily basis. So this was probably the first case in a long time that I actually followed as many true crime fans would. And I think that's because I related so heavily to it. I too was a young college girl who lived in a house with lots of people coming in and out, who was out having a good time, who was partying. My sister did the same thing. She was in a sorority. This could have happened to me or my sister. And I think that anytime you have that sort of relatability in a case, it gets your attention. On top of that, there was a lot of mystery around this case when it first happened. One thing people are not very aware of, at least I don't think they are, is that most crimes are not random. This whole idea of all these serial killers running around and all these people that are out to get you or traffic you or kidnap you or harm you, and that you don't know them is mostly a myth. It is a complete outlier in the criminal justice system. And that's why you know about cases like Ted Bundy, because these things rarely happen. So when they do, they tend to get national news coverage and attention. Most people, if they are harmed in any way, shape, or form, they are harmed by somebody that is intimately known to them. And that was pretty clear almost right away in the Idaho 4 case that was not actually true. Now, obviously, there have been a lot of kooks online who have tried to blame the surviving roommates or say that they were somehow involved in this. They've even tried to cast doubt on their friends who were involved in discovering the crime scene. There's always kooks out there, right? And internet algorithms tend to feed kooks and conspiracy theorists. But really, the hard evidence always indicated that this was a random crime. And so that's very scary to people. But over the past 2 years, more and more details have come out, and we now have a very clear picture of what happened that night. We know that BK was a freak show, okay? He seems to have been an absolute weirdo incel who had no friends and who women were creeped out by his entire life. He seems to have fixated on other smarter, more successful criminals and trying to learn everything that he could about criminality and studying it, and he obsessively pursued a degree in this field. But while he was able to get a degree, because it's not all that hard to get advanced degrees, let's be so serious, he couldn't even get a job with the local police because they too sussed him out. They thought he was a freak. And then it seems he somehow became familiar with one of these victims. Many people suspect it was Maddie Mogan. She was the first person that he killed. He went right to her room when he arrived. I love that I don't have to say allegedly anymore because it's been so apparent that he did this for some time. But you have to say that until they admit it or they're convicted. So now we can say that we know. But anyways, we know he went to her room first. We know that her friend Kaylee, who happened to be sleeping in the bed with her, didn't even live at the house anymore, just happened to be in town visiting her. And he was not expecting to see her. And I think she was just wrong place, wrong time, was killed. And then we also know Xana and her boyfriend Ethan, who were the third and fourth victims. Likely Xana encountered him while he was in the process of killing her 2 friends. He came after her and then killed her boyfriend to keep him from coming after him. So All that to say, most people suspect Maddie was the primary target. We don't know how he started fixating on her, but it seems to absolutely be the case that he did. And that's probably one of the only things that we still don't know about this case is why or how he chose the victims that he did. But either way, we know that he was stalking that house. He had learned their routines. He knew the layout of the house, and he went into that home and killed these 4 innocent children in the middle of the night around 4 a.m. And he almost got away with it, except for the fact that he was really, really stupid. And I do mean really stupid because, like, obviously things can always go wrong. You could plan the perfect crime and something will still happen that could give you away. But the way that he planned it, he hadn't even planned the perfect crime. Like, he took his cell phone with him to go to the house to kill them and then put it on airplane mode during the time period that he was there, as if that wasn't a giant red flag. He ordered the weapon on Amazon and used a gift card to do it because he thought that that wouldn't be traceable to him. He left the knife sheath that had some of his DNA at the crime scene, and then he returned to the crime scene the next morning where his cell phone again was pinged. Like, this guy was not really actually all that hard to capture. It's pretty hard to solve random crimes because, again, police aren't that great at solving crimes, period, and because most crimes are committed by somebody known to the victim. So when you are not somebody known to the victim, it adds an extra layer. But this guy was caught red-handed. They had his car on all kinds of footage, like just a real dingbat. But he was arrogant, right? Like, this guy is clearly somebody who had a grandiose complex, who just believed himself to be super intelligent and thought that he was better. Like, you can tell he was one of those guys who's like, society will see, they've overlooked me for too long. But like, no, they haven't. You're absolutely the loser everybody thought that you were. And so he tried to fight this whole thing and thought he was gonna have like a grand case and thought he was gonna get away with it somehow in the process for like 2 years. And then I think reality finally hit and he took this plea deal. Again, complete coward. So now BK is heading to prison for the rest of his life, where he can be forgotten and hopefully taken care of internally. But what I want to talk about today is how the victims' families showed up in this courtroom, because I was, of course, very curious to see what they would say. I was very glad to see that the judge was allowing them to read victim impact statements that were able to be delivered at length. Judges often curtail this process, only allow them to speak to the victims. They don't actually allow them to like fully address the perpetrator. They give them time limits. Like, there's all kinds of ways that this could be curtailed, and this judge did not do this. She gave the family absolute liberty to speak at length, and most of them came into the courtroom. And listen, I'm not here to judge anybody for what they said. I think every experience and every person's statement was valid. People need to express different sentiments in these moments to get closure or to feel like they are standing up for their loved one. But while I was watching, I was getting more and more frustrated because this guy is truly, I think, a psychopath. Like, I don't think he has any emotion. I don't think he has any empathy. I don't think there's like lights on behind the eyes. You know what I mean? Like, he's got like the shark eye kind of thing going on. He's a real freak. So while most of the victims' families were standing up, they were doing the typical thing and, talking about how amazing their loved one was and how grief-stricken they are and like what this is going to do to their lives and the impact it's going to have. And he was just completely stone-faced. He did not care. And I was getting madder and madder watching this because there's just something about me that like wants to bully a bully. You know what I mean? And I'm pretty good at it. Like, I tend to have this like, I call it a gift actually, where like I just have this like innate understanding of what will actually hurt somebody, what will actually like get under their skin, like what their pain point is. And the whole time I was watching him, I was just thinking, he doesn't care. He doesn't feel bad. He doesn't have remorse. He is a subhuman weirdo. If anything, he's feeding off of this. He likes it. It gives him validation because people are acknowledging him, which I don't think they do during the course of his typical day. And I was texting my sister because she is similarly obsessed with this case. And I was just like, if this were my family member, I would not cry. I would not tell him about my grief. I would not in any way talk to him about my memories of you. I would use that time solely to verbally destroy him, to take down every inch of his ego and to read him for filth. Like, when Maddie's family was testifying, they were talking about what an amazing and kind person she was and how she was the kind of person who, even if society had not shown him grace, would have shown him grace. And I'm like, that's amazing. Maddie sounds great. But I'm not that kind of person. And what I would have been saying is that, like, you're a freak that Maddie would have never touched with a 10-foot pole. And the only reason you could breathe the same oxygen as her is because you snuck into her room in the middle of the night, like the predator and animal that you are. And like, that's the only thing that would get through this guy, right? It's the only thing that would actually anger him, that would expose him for what he is, that would in any way like clock him. And so this went on for like over an hour, and I was getting more and more frustrated watching his reaction to the victims' families. But then Kaylees' family stepped up to the plate. I saw this meme that said, watching the BK sentencing witness statements, two of the families understandably grief-stricken, crying and telling stories about their kids. Enter Kaylees' family. This family understood the assignment. And this doesn't surprise me at all, because her family was on top of it. From the moment they were informed of her death, they went to bat. Her sister was finding video footage of her sister the night of her killing before the police did. They were getting tips before police did. They were getting leaks and like people blowing the whistle. Like, this family was about to solve this case on their own. They have been incredible advocates for their daughter and for their sister. And I just admire them. I think that, you know, there's many ways that people handle and process grief, but this family seems to have found a way to let it empower them and to go into action mode on behalf of their loved one. And it's just very powerful to see. So first, Kaylee's dad stepped up to the podium, and he actually turned it because it was facing perpendicular. He turned it to look at this guy head on and deliver his statements. And he did. He said exactly what I wanted somebody to say to him.
Police officers tell us within minutes they had your DNA, like a calling card. You were that careless, that foolish, that stupid. Master degree, you're a joke, complete joke. But we took this disaster and we did what we could. We put everything online. We took our kids, we took our images, we took everything that they did, their videos, their photos, the girls' pranks, Ethan singing. We put it out there, we shared it with the world. And the world united. And all they ended up, when they talked about this case, is they talked about Kaylee Jade, Maddie Mae, Xana, and Ethan. Everything what these people meant to us, a father, a mother, a brother, a sister, we shared that with our community. Then we shared it with our state. We shared it with the country. And eventually we shared it with the world. The world's watching because of the kids, not because of you. Nobody cares about you. You're not worth the time, the effort to be remembered. In time, you will be nothing but two initials forgotten to the wind. No visitors, nothing more than initials on an otherwise unmarked tombstone.
I was so happy for her dad when he delivered that statement. That was just everything I could have hoped for him in that moment. I thought he stood up and advocated for his daughter in the best way possible. Like, it just, what a man, you know? But then her sister got up. And listen, I am an eldest daughter, older sister, and hell hath no fury like an eldest daughter, oldest sister than if you harm our siblings. Like, I hear people talk about mama bears, and I'm like, maybe, but I don't think so. Like, eldest daughter, oldest sister, the protection that we feel, the rage that we feel if somebody hurts our younger siblings, if they even look at our younger siblings in an offensive way. And I think the difference is that, like, moms are held to like at least some kind of social decorum. Sisters aren't, okay? Like, I don't care. I don't care if I'm out of pocket. I don't care if I look a fool. And that's how Kaylee's sister came in. You can tell she's the exact same kind of sister. And this girl, like, she slayed her victim impact statement so hard. Standing ovation.
My name is Olivia, and I'm the big sister of Kaylee Gonzalez, and I was blessed to love Madison Mogan as a sister too. I'm not here today to speak in grief. I'm here to speak in truth. Because the truth is, my sister Kaylee and her best friend Maddie were not yours to take. Accepted, vibrant, accomplished, brave, and powerful. Because the truth about Kaylee and Maddie is they would have been kind to you. If you had approached them in their everyday lives, they would have given you directions, thanked you for the compliment, or awkwardly giggled to make your own words less uncomfortable for you. In a world that rejected you, they would have shown mercy. I won't stand here and give you what you want. I won't offer you tears. I won't offer you trembling. Disappointments like you thrive on pain, on fear, and on the illusion of power. And I won't feed your beast. Instead, I will call you what you are. Sociopath, psychopath, murderer. I will ask the questions that reverberate violently in my own head, so loudly that I can't think straight most any day. Some of these might be familiar, so sit up straight when I talk to you. How was your life right before you murdered my sisters? Did you prepare for the crime before leaving your apartment? How does it feel to know the only thing you failed more miserably at than being a murderer is trying to be a rapper? Did you recently start shaving or manually pulling out your eyebrows?
Baby.
How do you find it enjoyable to stargaze with such a severe case of visual snow? Where is the murder weapon? The clothes you wore that night? What were Kaylees' last words? Please describe in detail the level of anxiety you must have felt when you heard the Bearcat pull up to your family home on December 30th, 2022. If you were really smart, do you think you'd be here right now? What's it like needing this much attention just to feel real? You're terrified of being ordinary, aren't you?
Rage bait, I love it.
Do you feel anything at all? Or are you exactly what you always feared? Nothing. If you're so powerful, then why are you still hiding, defendant? You see, I'm here today as me. But who are you? Let's try to take off your mask and see. You didn't create devastation. You revealed it in yourself. And that darkness you carry, that emptiness, you'll sit with it long after this is over. That is your sentence. And it was written on the wall long before you ever pled guilty. You didn't win. You just exposed yourself as the coward you are. You're a delusional, pathetic, hypochondriac loser who thought you were so much smarter than everybody else. Constantly scolding, turning your nose up to grammar mistakes, nitpicking and criticizing others. You wanted so badly to be different, to be special, to be better, to be deep, to be mysterious.
Let's go.
You found yourself thinking you were better than everyone else, and you thought you could figure out the human psyche and see through it, all while tweaked out on heroin. Lurking in the shadows made you feel powerful because no one ever paid you any attention in the light. You thought you were exceptional, all because of a grade on a paper. You thought you were elite because your online IQ test from 2010 told you so.
Damn.
All of that effort just to seem important. It's desperate. There is a name for your condition, though. Your inflated ego just didn't allow you to see it. Wannabe. You act like no one could ever understand your mind, but the truth is you're basic. You're a textbook case of insecurity disguised as control. Your patterns are predictable. Your motives are shallow. You are not profound. You're pathetic.
Let's go, girl.
You aren't special or deep, not mysterious or exceptional. Don't ever get it twisted again. No one is scared of you today. No one is intimidated by you. No one is impressed by you. No one thinks that you are important. You orchestrated this like you thought you were God. Now look at you, begging a courtroom for scraps. You spent months preparing, and still all it took was my sister in a sheath. You worked so hard to seem dangerous, but real control doesn't have to prove itself. The truth is, the scariest part about you is how painfully average you turned out to be. The truth is, You're as dumb as they come.
Oof, but he hated that.
Stupid, clumsy, slow, sloppy, weak, dirty.
Let's go.
Let me be very clear. Don't ever try to convince yourself you mattered just because someone finally said your name out loud. I see through you. You want the truth? Here's the one you'll hate the most. If you hadn't attacked them in their sleep, in the middle of the night, like a pedophile, Kaylee would have kicked your ass. Thank you.
Thank you.
And it actually only got better from there, because then there was another statement read from one of Kaylee's other sisters that just kept going. Like, they just kept coming in harder in the paint, each person in the lineup.
But for you, as a person working on a PhD in criminal justice, you really didn't think this one through. You're not that good. In fact, you're not that good at anything. You couldn't secure a job. You couldn't get along with others. You couldn't even get a female to look in your direction. All because you are pathetic. Now you're a joke in this courtroom. I wish I could crown you with a jester hat to complete your orange jumpsuit clown look. A dead killer doesn't kill again. So while I'm disappointed the firing squad won't get to take their shots at you, I'm confident that the men in prison will have their way with you in more ways than one. You will finally get what you wanted, physical touch. Just probably not how you were expecting it. See, you haven't beat the system. You've simply entered a new one, where the rules are cruel and the consequences will never end. You are entering a place where no one will care who you are and no one will ever respect you. You will be forgotten, discarded, used, and erased. You will always be remembered as a loser, an absolute failure. And when those prison doors slam shut behind you, I hope that sound echoes in your heart for the rest of your meaningless days. I hope it reminds you of what we all already know. You're nothing. May you continue to live your life in misery. You are officially the property of the state of Idaho, where your fellow inmates are anxiously awaiting your arrival. But it's okay, because they're there to help you.
This family should put on a master class for others who are going through grief. Like, this was just so powerful, so phenomenal to watch. I don't know that I have a huge takeaway from this case. I am glad to see it come to a close. I'm glad this guy's ugly face will no longer be in my news cycle ever again. I'm glad that the families and society can now focus on honoring the victims. I guess if I have any takeaway other than my views on the criminal justice system and how we could have a more efficient system that actually spends our resources solving more crimes, which we do very, very little of, versus having theater productions when it comes to court cases, it would be to empower your kids. This is my one thing that I think is very sad in this case. And actually, like, it's not just sad. There's also probably, I have to guess, some kind of legality involved, because when I was in college, I came from a family that was very pro Second Amendment and that taught me to exercise my right to self-defense, particularly as a young woman. The Second Amendment is the only thing, as a feminist, that can truly make women equal to men. And it's very, very sad that none of these young women seem to have had any weapons at their disposal to fight back with when they were attacked in the middle of the night. And had they had those resources, it could have saved their lives. Now, I say there's an element of legality involved because oftentimes colleges and even homes that are renting to college kids prohibit people in college from being able to carry. I know this was true at Belmont University when I was in school, when I lived on campus, and in campus housing, I was not allowed to have anything on me, not in my apartment, not in my car, not walking around at night. You are making people sitting ducks, particularly young women who often do have to walk around a good bit when they are living in college towns. We need to make sure that the laws are structured in such a way that people always have the right to defend themselves, and parents need to do a good job of empowering their children, but particularly their daughters, to take advantage of the right to self-defense and to prepare themselves adequately for the monsters that are out there in society. All right, guys, that's a wrap for today. I hope you found this video informative. Don't forget to weigh in the comments, like this video, and head over and subscribe to my channel. And if you want even more content or to support the work that I'm doing across all social media platforms, you can head over to my Substack. I have the link in my bio. I'm writing subscriber-only articles there pretty frequently. I'm also releasing first glance looks at a book I'm working on called Nobody Wants to Be the Mommy, that deals with the growing birth rate decline and many of the attacks on women's rights over it. It's part memoir, part political analysis. So if you want to get a sneak peek at that and give me your feedback as I'm working to get this published, I would love that. Also, we'll be having some subscriber-only live Q&A events very soon. So if you want to chat with me, that will be a great opportunity.